السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الشرق الأوسط الجديد ولد مشوها بانتصار المقاومة في لبنان إثر العدوان الإسرائيلي في تموز يوليو آب أغسطس 2006، ودفن بعد انتصار العراق وتحرير الموصل من داعش. أما اليوم فيجري تطهير سوريا ولبنان من آثامه وأوزاره. بين تموز يوليو 2006 وتموز يوليو 2017 حكاية نصر لا ينتهي، إذ ولى زمن الهزائم وجاء زمن الانتصارات. مع الباحثة المستقلة فانيسا بييلي نتحدث من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. لعل رجال المقاومة في حزب الله يتمتعون بقدرات تنظيمية عالية بحسب المختصين المتابعين لمجريات معركة جرود عرسال. ويظهر الأداء العسكري المتميز في واحدة من أصعب المناطق على الحدود اللبنانية من ناحية التضاريس والوعورة جغرافياً، وهم قتلوا وهزموا واحدة من التنظيمات الإرهابية الأكثر تصميماً وتجهيزاً في الأسلحة والأيديولوجية، وهو جبهة النصرة أو تنظيم القاعدة، والذي هو وفقاً لمحللين أكثر تنظيماً وتخطيطاً وتدريباً من تنظيم داعش في القتال والحرب. هذا في لبنان. أما في سوريا فيرى المراقبون أن اتفاق خفض التصعيد لعله يحمل بين ثناياه تحدياً لحزب الله، وهو وجود أمريكي عسكري في الميدان السوري. والسؤال هنا، إلى أي حد يشكل هذا الوجود عائقاً لحزب الله؟ من ناحية ثانية باتت تعلو الأصوات منددة بهذا الوجود الأمريكي وشرعيته، ولا سيما في ظل الإشارات الخجولة في وسائل الإعلام الغربية لهذا الأمر. فاليوم الولايات المتحدة تخلق بهدوء بصمة عسكرية عدائية داخل سوريا. السناتور الأمريكي الجمهوري من ولاية فيرجينيا ريتشارد بلاك قال: حتى أننا قد أنشأنا قاعدة في التنف في الجزء الجنوبي، وهي قاعدة أمريكية داخل سوريا. وأضاف: لا يمكن أن يكون هناك انتهاك أكثر وضوحاً للقانون الدولي من التحرك فعلاً وإقامة قاعدة عسكرية في دولة ذات سيادة لم تقم بأي عمل عدواني ضد بلدنا. فانيسا بييلي الباحثة المستقلة من بريطانيا ومن عيتا الشعب في الجنوب اللبناني، البقعة الأكثر إيلاما للعدو الإسرائيلي في الحرب المدمرة في تموز يوليو 2006، تحدثنا من الداخل عن رمزية وجودها في هذه البلدة، وعن أداء وانتصارات حزب الله منذ تموز يوليو 2006 وحتى تموز يوليو 2017، وعن تعاظم قدراته نوعا وكما، وعن تبخر الأحلام بما يسمى الشرق الأوسط الجديد. Independent researcher and photojournalist Vanessa Bielie, welcome to من الداخل from the inside, Vanessa. Always welcome.
Thank you so much for bringing me here.
Okay, now the importance of this place, we are now in the heart of عيتا الشعب, and we are on this hill which is very important because it overlooks the place of the capture of the 2 Israeli soldiers by the resistance back in 2006. It's Khilit Wardi, and also overlooking the Israeli post. We are just meters away from the nearest Israeli post. The importance of being here, Vanessa, is that this place, this town, with its people, with the resistance, it stood as a strong shield in face of the Israelis for 33 days. And the Israelis couldn't get in, to the extent that they attempted to shovel the houses, but they even couldn't get in. What do you feel at the beginning, Vanessa?
Actually, it was extraordinary arriving here. There was a real sensation of power and steadfastness and resistance. I mean, it's palpable. You can touch it, you can feel it. The energy comes from the land, from the stone, from the people. and you can touch it. It's a force field of resistance.
Actually, Vanessa, I second what you're saying, and you said that you can feel the strength coming from the earth, from the soil, from the trees, from everything, because this land is very ripe with the blood of those men, of the martyrs who have sacrificed themselves in order to protect their country and their countrymen also from the Israeli offensive forces. Their decision and their slogan is, "Our decision is resistance." How do you understand this, Vanessa?
Well, the extraordinary thing is that I think we've seen a journey of resistance from the 2006, but even before, for decades, culminating in 2006, the 33 days of bombardment and resistance against all odds. And I think what we saw during that time were many things. First of all, the Israeli, which of course is the NATO alliance, the US alliance, with NATO as its vanguard, let's say, assuming that they could destroy what they perceived to be a guerrilla movement of maybe 5,000 fighters easily, with little resistance. They also made the assumption that if they were to collectively punish the people where these guerrilla fighters were living and fighting, then they could bring this area to its knees. They also, during this 33 days, what was revealed was the level of lies and propaganda behind the Israeli media, behind the Israeli statements. So on all of these three levels, what is effectively resistance fighters with limited weaponry, fighting against the might, effectively, of entire nations, of international communities.
And a massive air force.
Exactly. Resisted. But not only did they resist, the people that were being collectively punished in order to bring this resistance to its knees, they resisted, even without the weapons and even without the ability to fight back. They resisted through their stubbornness, through their steadfastness. And we know that part of this attack was also still an attack on Damascus, on Syria, to also break the axis of resistance, to bring Damascus even to its knees. But in fact, these 33 days derailed Washington's agenda completely, because they did not expect to lose this war. Israel did not expect to lose this war.
Exactly. Allow me to come back here to this town, to عيتا الشعب.
Sure.
This town, the importance of this town, Vanessa, is that it has hurt the Israelis the most, where despite the destruction of over 1,100 houses, causing masses of debris, yet its people didn't leave their town. What do you say vis-a-vis this sort of resilience and steadfastness? Now, after 11 years, we're sitting here.
Yeah, and it's extraordinary. I mean, when we were driving in, I said to you, it's as if the war did not happen. So what this demonstrates is this extraordinary resilience, the extraordinary ability of these people who have suffered so much, under so much brutality, under so much violence, asymmetric violence.
Exactly.
Regain their identity, regain their culture, regain their history, regain where they live.
Despite all the media onslaught.
Yes. Despite everything, life goes on. And again, this is mirrored. I know we will talk about Syria later, but it's mirrored every time. It's mirrored by what is happening in Palestine. It is mirrored here. And it is mirrored what is now happening in Syria. And every time that the Zionist entity makes an attempt to destroy not only societies and villages like this, but entire cultures and history, it fails. And this should be a very, very important and a very strong, powerful message, not only to the Zionist entity that is sat directly in front of me and behind you, but to its coalition, to its allies.
But allow me here, Vanessa, to focus on the sense of celebration, because today on the 14th of August of every year, we celebrate the resistance victory over the Israeli so-called invincible power and army. But the taste of celebration this year, 2017, is more aromatic. It's even more sweet tasting than before because of the victory also of the resistance in the eastern part of Lebanon against the terrorists of al-Nusra Front in the barren areas or the outskirts of Arsal. How do you see this kind of continuous resistance in this axis?
It's extraordinary. I actually visited the village of Al-Ka, the Christian village, in this area last year after the suicide bombings in June. And I spent 3 days there. And I experienced the constant feeling of fear and intimidation and threat. I was sitting in one of the outskirt houses, farms, and listening to the terrorists moving in the territory around that house, and they had actually lost their father in the suicide bombing. So I felt very strongly the effect of the terrorist occupation of the areas around Arsal and around Al-Ka. So to hear of the victory of the resistance against these terrorist entities, which of course we know are also supported in many cases, treated medically, armed and funded by the Zionist entity, among others. But to hear of their defeat in Arsal, and to see particularly the Hezbollah flag flying next to the Lebanese flag, and the removal of the Nusra flag on the hills there, was again, you know, this is a demonstration of how it doesn't matter how powerful, how well armed, how well funded, how well equipped these entities are. That's what they are. They are entities. They are not fighting for an ideology. They're not fighting for freedom.
Right. What about the people in Al-Qa, where you've spent like 3 days? How was their reaction to what was going on around them, all this terror around their town?
Al-Qa, I mean, it's a village of 3,000 inhabitants at most. Right on the outskirts of Al-Qa was the refugee camp, which was 30,000 strong. And I was told by many of the witnesses, many of the members of the families of the victims, that the perpetrators of the suicide bombing came from that refugee camp, and that refugee camp was celebrating the killings the day after. So there was a very strong feeling of the need to cleanse the region of these extremist entities that would be focused on, for example, in Al-Qa, the ethnic cleansing and the driving of the Christian community from Al-Qa village deeper into Lebanon. So already at that time, the defense of the borders and the creating of a corridor to contain, between the Syrian army and Hezbollah, to contain the terrorist entity and to prevent it from coming into these villages in Lebanon was extremely important.
Vanessa, we're going to keep on talking about Hezbollah, about this victory in Arsal, the repercussions of such a victory, even vis-a-vis Israel and whatever it attempts to do in the future. But we have to stop for a short break. Allow us to stop for a short break. إذن فاصل قصير ونعود. لا تذهبوا بعيدا. يشير المراقبون إلى أن حزب الله أصبح أقوى وأكثر خبرة بعد الحرب في سوريا. الصراع السوري منحه التدريب والخبرة إضافة إلى ترسانة أسلحة مثيرة للإعجاب. الباحثة المستقلة والكاتبة فانيسا بييلي، هل تعتقد أن هناك تحسنا ملحوظا ما بين حزب الله في تموز 2006 وحزب الله في تموز 2017؟
One cannot go through the 7-year war that has been waged in Syria without increasing your experience, without increasing your battle awareness. And also with the victories that have been achieved, we're seeing now the reaping of the rewards of a military campaign inside Syria that has been fiercely fought. It has been fought under sanctions. It has been fought under punishing conditions. It has been fought again against an asymmetric force. Because if we look at the equipment and the armory that is being given to the extremist entities inside Syria, it far outweighs
very sophisticated
the weaponry. Yes, I mean they have the Grad missiles. I was in عيتا this week. And witnessed the weaponry that they have available to them. And they have been heavily funded, they have been heavily armed. And so
with a massive also media campaign and propaganda supporting whatever they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, they are portrayed in the West as these freedom-loving, democratic bringing moderate rebels. I've spoken to many of the internally displaced people and asked them of their impression of the freedom and democracy that they're bringing. And actually one of the strongest statements I received was from a woman from East Ghouta, and she said, they've brought nothing but misery. They kicked me out of my home. They brought me nothing but loneliness, death, and poverty. And this is the message.
Yes. So you believe that the Syria experience on the ground for Hezbollah, for the resistance, has, you know, made it become more sophisticated.
Absolutely.
In facing
and
it's
strengthened, I would say, certainly with the change in consensus among the public. Not so much among, obviously, Western governments, NATO-aligned NGOs and the media. No, of course not. But among the Western public who have seen the strength of the axis of resistance, Iran, Hezbollah, Syria, Russia, and they've seen the cohesion amongst these various branches of the resistance. And I think now with the consensus changing and people accepting that this was an illegal war of intervention to basically achieve regime change in Syria, Hezbollah's reputation also, I think, has increased in leaps and bounds in Western perception, public perception, because they perceive them to be true to their principles, true to their defense against any oppression, and certainly what we've seen
or aggression or violation.
Aggression,
true.
Exactly. Violation of international law. In fact, Hezbollah are upholding international law while the US coalition is behaving as a rogue state.
Now, also observers know that Hezbollah performance in Syria and in Erbil recently, since 2013 until today, is confirming that Israel will not attack Lebanon for many years to come. How do you agree with this?
I absolutely agree with this. And I think what is important as well is areas inside Syria that Hezbollah has taken control of with the Syrian army, like Al-Qasir, for example. All of this is weakening Israel's perceived supremacy in the region.
So one of the main implications of the recent battle in Erbil, the victory of the resistance, is a clear message of deterrence to Israel.
Yeah. Because actually these extremist entities, whether it's Nusra Front or whether it's Daesh or any of the other many brigades and factions, their actual ability to fight on the ground is probably greater than Israel's. We know that whenever Israel engages on the ground, it's terrified. It doesn't know what to do because it's so used to having the air supremacy and the control of the air power. So this is a very clear message that you can send your proxies, you can send an arm and fund and support any form of extremist entity, whether it is Zionist or whether it is Wahhabi or whether it is Ikhwan. We will defeat it. Nothing you throw at us will overcome us.
Now, Vanessa, I said in my introduction that the new Middle East, which then Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said that we were witnessing its birth pangs, has been born deformed due to the resistance victory back in 2006, and it was buried in 2017 by the ultimate defeat of ISIS in Mosul, and also currently its remnants are being swept away, are being driven out, deracinated from both Syria and Lebanon. Is this how you see the picture, Fانيسا?
Yeah, I mean, I think we still have some uprooting to do in Deir ez-Zor and in Raqqa, in Syria, and I don't think, I don't think the war is over yet. But certainly, I agree with your summary there that their view of the new Middle East was deformed, and it was deformed in their own vision. And I think what they underestimated was the strength of this resistance, the crescent of resistance, which they have been trying to dismember or to break down and fragment, even before 2006. But 2006 gave the very clear message that this idea of collective punishment to bring the resistance to its knees was not going to work. And now what we've seen in Syria, of course, is the same thing, the collective punishment of the people through economic terrorism,
the
propaganda,
sanctions,
media
yes,
terrorism,
exactly.
and military terrorism. It has not succeeded. It has actually strengthened, shall we say, the support for the resistance inside Syria, but regionally, and I would say globally.
Allow me here to ask you about something which is very recent. Henry Kissinger, the 94-year-old former Secretary of State, recently warned destroying ISIS could lead to an Iranian radical empire. If the ISIS territory is occupied by Iran's Revolutionary Guards or Shia forces, as he said, trained and directed by Iran, the result could be a territorial belt reaching from Tehran to Beirut.
Well, this is the greatest fear of Saudi Arabia.
So they don't want, yes, exactly. They don't want to deal a blow to ISIS.
No, of course not. I mean, we've seen, if we go back to September 2016, when the US coalition air forces bombed the Syrian Arab Army soldiers in Deir ez-Zor and allowed ISIS to advance and to take a strategic position, which afterwards thankfully was retaken. This was the first, well, not the first example, this was a very clear example of the US coalition acting actually as ISIS Air Force. And we've seen further examples of this. In December 2016, when Palmyra was retaken, I spoke to military officers who were on the ground then, and they said very clearly that the US Air Force was shadowing ISIS and giving them air cover during their second taking of Palmyra in December, of course, as Aleppo was being liberated. So we always see the United States working not against ISIS, but in unison with ISIS. We know that they have dropped equipment to Daesh forces. We know that under the US war against terror, in fact, terror flourished and blossomed in Syria. It was only when the Russians came in September 2015 that we started to see the true eradication of ISIS in Syria. And now when we look at militarily the Syrian army moving forward to retake and liberate Deir ez-Zor and then obviously Raqqa, of course what do we see? We see the US coalition bombing not only Syrian Arab Army forces, I think 4 times, but also attacking and bombing civilian targets, hospitals close to Deir ez-Zor and Raqqa. So clearly defending the ISIS or the Daesh entity in these areas.
Many thanks indeed, independent researcher and photojournalist Fانيسا بييلي, for this interview.
You're absolutely welcome.
Always welcome, ma'am. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل مع ضيف جديد وقضية جديدة ودائما من الداخل. للمزيد من التواصل بريدنا ب inside@mayadeen.net وصفحتنا على الفيسبوك من الداخل. من كل فريق عمل من الداخل من كل الميادين من عيتا الشعب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.